Welcome back, and thank you for staying with us tonight on NTV Weekend Edition. On Talk of the Nation, the COVID-19 lockdown has left many people out of their workstations and some unable to earn a living, frustrated. Consequently, many are thinking about the NSSF Amendment Bill 2019 recently passed by Parliament. The bill allows for mid-term access to 20% of one's savings when they make 45 years and have saved with the fund for not less than 10 years. However, this bill is yet to be signed by the President to become law and also allow access. To weigh in on this matter, we have Mr MARTIN NSUBUGA, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the Uganda Retirement Benefits Regulatory Authority. A very good evening and welcome to Talk of the Nation tonight.
Good evening, Sandra, and thank you for hosting me this evening.
In what ways has the pandemic affected your day-to-day operations?
Well, UBRA is a regulatory body which oversees the operations and management of retirement benefit schemes in Uganda. We are remotely working, we are very thin on the ground. There are some direct supervision oversights which are supposed to take, which are on-site. We cannot undertake them because of the restrictions around and the movements, but by and large, the sector growth has also been affected in one or another. Normally around this time, our sector has steadily been growing at an average rate of 20% annually. We don't anticipate that because of two or three reasons. The first one, the contributions that are normally are coming in, but not at that high volumes because the entities that make contributions are affected, and subsequently some employees are not in operation, and some employers have actually asked for some delays in making that good, so that's partly affected. The second one, some asset classes within which we invest or the schemes invest in are not doing so well, especially on the equity side. But by and large, because of the concentration is mainly in government securities which still do good, I would say that that has been the best safety net for now, because government securities, I think the schemes have invested more than 75% of their portfolios into that, which is very good. But nonetheless, there are also some good equities that are still doing very well. The financial sector is doing well, but the telecom one, that is the Safaricom in Kenya, which has not been largely hit by this because the virtual operations all need communication, need ICT, etc., etc. They will need data. So that side has partly helped to recover that. So I wouldn't expect very high declaration of returns, but we can give assurance to the members that their monies have not been impaired in value. The money has grown, but not at the rate that would have loved.
Well, with this background in mind and also having a UBRA's mandate at the back of our minds, one would be wondering, as a regulatory authority, is there something you're doing currently to sort of, make it easier for people or give assistance to Ugandans at the moment? Are there strategies that you're putting in place?
Yes, the first one on the contribution challenge, we've allowed schemes that cannot make contributions to defer contributions, but they need to notify us, and we've allowed them. There are those which have their provisions in the Act where the situations can, especially in the occupational schemes, where the situation does not support or enable them to make contributions into the schemes, they can not actually defer. Deferring means you postpone. Here they say we shall not be able to meet obligations this time round, but once the situation normalizes, we shall get back to that. Those ones have also been allowed. And then there are those who have taken advantage of the NSSF Act window, which allows them to, again, NSSF has issued a guidance on that, to defer making contributions, but you have to make good in the long run. That is on one side, on the contribution side. But we also know that there are some people who have been affected during this COVID time who need some resources to meet a few obligations or commitments, particularly those in ICU. We've, on a one-on-one case, we've allowed some schemes to allow their members access some money for that purpose, but not so much. because much as the OBRA Act allows for a regulation to be issued to provide for ill health, it has a constraint of having the medical board in place in order to approve that, and that has not been very forthcoming. But nonetheless, we've approached the Minister of Health and the medical board. Hopefully we can come up with a solution that is going to be general, but on one-on-one basis. We've provided support to some schemes which have approached us, and we've given them a leeway, but with some limitations. One, you cannot access 100% of that money to meet your medical cover, no, even if you are the one who is in their need, because we are very mindful of the beneficiaries. In the event that you don't survive, you leave behind those beneficiaries who need support. So we've put a limit of you can only access not more than 50% of your saved benefits from that occupational scheme. But again, there is also a window. The good thing, the NSSF Act has a provision for invalidity benefit, which they can exercise. So for the occupational schemes, so if you are a person who has a dual benefit in terms of a member of NSSF and your employer also has an occupational scheme, then you can combine the two and probably be able to have that stopgap measure to intervene in the situation the way it is. But by and large, those are the few interventions we've been able to put in place to support.
All right. Now we know that many are still really stuck at home and able to to access some of their savings in the pension fund. Where do you sit on the matter currently, or in terms of accessing their NSSF savings? What are your thoughts on that?
First of all, if you're talking of accessing the normal access when you're retiring, that is pretty okay. It is provided for. If you're talking of access for in kind of a mid-term access, that is prior to your retirement, the few challenges around that, because the motivation for the law or the spirit of the law was not for such eventualities. It's only bringing us to know that actually the framers of the law would have looked broad and provided for some provisions for emergency funds or for such kind of situations. But by and large, accessing your funds for purposes of meeting such provisions can only be in the defined circumstances I've mentioned about. For your ill health, which is being taken care of by the law that we're coming up with, and also by the interventions we provided for. And the second window is the platform that NSSF is using, the invalidity benefit. Now, outside those, for purposes of just accessing your benefits for any other purposes that you think are benefiting you, and I think it's one of the proposals that were put in the NSSF Amendment Bill, it's a bit, we have reservations as regulators. One, the motivation for your saving for retirement, your saving to date is for your retirement. Of course, the arguments that have been put forward that these monies can also be used for your other security benefits, but that was not the purpose. Secondly, if you allow such drawdowns, at the end of the day, you are going to impair the big portfolio that you are trying to look at, that you are trying to build, and of course the opportunity cost on earning on the returns that you would have benefited from that investment if that portfolio was maintained. So drawing down, in the worst case, people just waste these resources. Of course, if you have invested, the literature on the ground, all the statistics available, others that have been able to access these funds have actually wasted them or eaten that fund. So do we want to say that these funds are for now turned into an emergency fund? I think that wouldn't be right. So practically, accessing broadly, like for defined purposes, it's a good approach, but it has to be conditioned or restricted. The good thing, one of the provisions in the bill, I think, has a provision that would allow for conditions or kind of a regulation to be developed, a statutory instrument that would guide that process, which would mean that SANDO will not just walk into, say, NSSF or any other scheme and say, please get my 20%. No, you have to meet certain criteria. The other final important point is this money is not idle. If you save with a scheme to date, these funds are supposed to be invested. And the numbers I've talked about to date, the sector growing at over 20%. Today we are talking of 17 trillion assets under management. All that money is built up because of the prudence and investment, but also in terms of the performance of the, not only the regulators, but the scheme. Now, when you say, I need that money today, where is it? It's being invested. It means schemes are supposed to forego an investment opportunity, which is beneficial to a member, and then get money and pay. So what has not been talked about? Who is going to meet this cost? Who is going to meet this cost?
All right.
Is the member going to meet this cost? And instead of getting 10 million, they will get 7. Are they willing, or are they even aware of that implication? So all this need to be brought to the table.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Martin NSUBUGA, the Chief Executive Officer of Uganda Retirement Benefits Authority, joining us tonight. And thank you as well for joining us. We'll take a short break and we'll be back with more stories on NTV Weekend Edition.